Hi, my name is Margy Dudley, and I live in Durango, Colorado, where we moved, my husband and I, and our 4 sons, 17 years ago from New York. And 15 years ago, I opened the Open Shutter Gallery, which is a fine art photography gallery. And the reason really for moving here to the West is that we felt that the West had a kind of a community pioneering spirit, and we were really looking for that community connection. So we started driving around with the intention of moving and found Durango, and it was pretty immediately apparent that this was a unique community. And we believe in supporting each other, helping each other through the rough times, to support people in starting a business, for example. And I probably wouldn't have tried this anywhere else, but I had so much support in this community. And through the gallery, I've been able to work with many, many not-for-profits. And in this county, Plata County, we have a lot of not-for-profits. And so what I can do, for example, is to donate the space and throw a fundraiser here. For me, it doesn't cost me anything except a few extra hours of being in the gallery, so that's my donation. And I think that my point is really that you can have your own business, but continue to give and donate and support people doing good things, especially with these not-for-profits. Everything from art and music to housing situations for homeless people, for food banks, for health. I think that another way that we were able to help with people in need is that when I would do a photography exhibit, bring someone in from anywhere in the U.S. We have people from the East Coast and the West Coast. And typically I would ask a photographer if they'd be willing to donate one of their images. And usually it was specific to the theme. If I had a black and white show of dancers, then the photographer would donate a piece of dance photography, which would be auctioned off to benefit the dance company in town. So there are ways of doing things that really don't cost any of us as business owners, as community members, anything extra, but really make a big difference with the people that are working so hard to help community in ways of supporting each other. And another thing about Durango I've noticed is that if someone is ill and medical bills are high, there's always so much community support, and even people who have the least seem to give whatever they can give. So I think we all have the same needs and wants in our lives. And one thing you find in many other countries, I've been lucky enough to travel around the world, is that community is strong. I think that we've become a little more isolated. We definitely have become isolated in the U.S. You go to get cash at the bank, you go to the ATM machine, you never even have to see anybody. And you take your car to get gas, and you fill it and pump it by yourself, and again, you never see anyone. And we build bigger houses where we spend more time alone. I think that can cause depression and isolation. So it would be nice to bring back that feeling of community, and so far, being a community member and a business owner in a small town like Durango, has shown me a pretty good example of what it can be. Thank you.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
How do we bring people out of isolation in our community? What could we do differently? Do you think we're doing a good job now, or do you think we could do some things differently?
I think it could be done in different ways depending on whether you live in an urban setting, although even in a big city, each neighborhood is its own community. So I think that, there's an example here in Durango that has started to take off. There's a park, Buckley Park, and every Thursday night, for free, there's a concert. And these bands come from mostly around the state, sometimes even from California, and they'll perform. And lately, it took a little while for it to catch on. That's the other thing. I think you have to be patient and get the word out. But people have come out with their kids and older generation and really share time together. Something that I think brings people together, I know in fact brings people together, as I've mentioned before, is music, but also art of many different kinds. It can be, whether it's pottery or painting, certainly photography in my case. But there is a group here in Durango, Plata Youth Services, and they try to reach youths at risk. In other words, communicate with them better about their family lives, about what they want in life or what is a problem for them through their art. And they offer them the chance to, in fact, they've done shows here at the Open Shutter Gallery. But art is a great way to bring people together, and it can be cooking, it can be writing, and storytelling has become actually more and more popular as it's seen sort of as storytelling is something that's passed on from generations. You have the grandparent who talks to the grandchild, and in West Africa, for example, there's a whole special kind of class of person called a griot, which is like a minstrel, and they have the honor of passing on the oral traditions. And we could get back to that. You see The Moth, which is a podcast where you can enter a story, something that really resonates with the audience. And we've even brought something here to Durango. I'm not involved with it, but The Raven, which is very similar to The Moth. And I went to the last performance. And these were people who are not professional storytellers, but they were sharing with the audience. It's a lot of audience participation in the sense, not that the audience makes any noise, but that they listen. And so reading and books, I think, are still strong, even with all of the internet and all the social media, which can be good, but can also be very damaging because change happens so quickly that we can't keep up with it. As human beings, as spiritual beings, we don't nurture that side of ourselves. I think it's as much as we have taken to the digital age. And again, it's all good, but I think we need to make sure to stay connected, not just through Facebook, but on a personal, face-to-face level, because there are things that you wouldn't say to someone in person that gets said on social media that just creates problems. So I think that storytelling and sharing is a huge, huge connection. And if there's a way to bring more people together and have more chances like The Raven, The Moth, to honor that, that's something that you find in many other cultures that are passed down, whether it's Asia, Africa, that you don't tend to find in our country so much, in the U.S.
So how do you stay connected in our community? What leads to connection for you?
For me, certainly having 4 sons, and they're now all grown, and they have their own communities in different areas, but certainly through bike races and music, they played music, we were drawn into those activities. And so it's a little easier, I think, when you have kids, you're sort of brought into those situations. But I was also lucky in the gallery that I just decided, since it was my gallery, and coming from New York, I felt that if you walked into a photography gallery, and I was a young photographer, many times I wasn't greeted at all, and I felt it was very impersonal, and I didn't feel very, very good. And so I decided with my own gallery that I was going to do just the opposite, and I was going to greet people and explain to them what they were looking at, whether they knew much about photography or not, whether they were a college student or, an older couple. It didn't matter. Everybody was going to get the same attention and a greeting and explanation, and hopefully feel inspired when they're in here, even if they don't buy anything. Of course, we are in retail, so we have to sell some things, but I think that good karma, if someone comes in here and has a great experience, and I've heard that this happens, that they will always make sure to bring their aunts and uncles and visitors and word gets passed around that this is just a great place to be, and that we're welcoming, and that art becomes something that's not untouchable, that it's available to anyone. In fact, that's why we have beautiful note cards and a few camera charms. They're $6. So I want anyone that walks in the store to feel like if they want to, they can afford to buy something, and also that they're greeted and share our passion for photography.
What personally inspires you?
In photography? Or
In general. What inspires you?
There's absolutely no question that the wilderness is a huge inspiration for me. And that's a lot of the reason why we moved west, as I mentioned, also for community. We had no idea we would get both in such a big way. I think that it's interesting when you see or hear of big Fortune 500 companies taking their employees to these outward bound style programs so that they can bond and be in the wilderness and get back to who they really are. I feel like myself when I'm in the wilderness, whether it's taking a hike with my dogs or paddling on a river. And I think the camera is what I use to tell that story, to communicate. It's visual storytelling, basically. Even though I started taking pictures in New York of people, and I continue to, and I still love being around people and seeing their fun, funny, serious interactions with another person, with a thing, with an animal. I take a lot of portrait style photography, but the wilderness as well. It's just got, there's something about it. I feel like I can be myself, and I think if more people had the chance to spend time in the quiet and the wilderness, you'd feel a connection to the earth. And to do it with a group of people that are feeling that too, I think is also a very, very positive thing.
One more question.
Sure.
How do we practice as a community being more authentic with ourselves and others?
Authenticity, I think, is really hard because and a perfect example is Facebook, we put out an image of ourselves, of what we want everyone else to see. But that's not our authentic self. It's something we've created by the pictures we choose to share. And I use Facebook. I think it's great for getting in touch with people. But that's just an example of how we have sort of designed ourselves in a certain way that we want people to see us. I think getting back to your authentic self is a very difficult thing to do because we're so busy and we don't give the time to it. I think meditating is great. I honestly never seem to have the time to do it. It's not easy, but I think I find that I feel like my most basic self when I am alone in the wilderness. Listening, it's amazing what you'll see if you listen. If you're sitting by a creek and you just listen to the creek and just get that time to be still, because we're moving all the time. We're moving, things are coming at us. We're going from obligation to obligation. And I think if you can just take the time to slow down, whether it's in your backyard, lying on the grass, looking up at the trees and the clouds, just like a 5-year-old would do. And that's when we were very authentic as children. I think artists try and maintain that too. But even just being in your backyard and being still, you have to maybe make a date with that half an hour to just lie still and look up at the clouds and remember where you are on this planet.
So Margy, you mentioned that you have seen a life coach before?
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, they can be really helpful. I think it's something that some people hesitate to use because you do have to pay a fair amount for a life coach. But what they do is sort of help you sort your life out. So if you feel stressed out and No, I don't like that. I feel like an advertisement. So basically, what you need is a chance when you're feeling stressed out to untangle all the different parts of your life. For me, for example, I'm a mother first, a wife, a business owner, a sister, a daughter. I have a community member, a neighbor. I have all these different labels and responsibilities in my life. And sometimes for a lot of people, and myself included, there are times when all of those become too much. And it's all good things for the most part, not always, but the demands and the obligations, just you keep saying yes, you take more things on, and then I think that's when your stress level goes up. And for me, I feel it physically. I'll feel a knot right in my chest. I don't sleep well or feel like eating. I feel like my vibration or I'm working at a level of this and can't really be present enough to enjoy any of the good things that I do have. And then, of course, you throw something in there like a difficult situation with a friend or an employee, and then you just feel like you're frozen. You can't even move forward. And that's when I finally started saying things to myself like, no. One thing that I have found through myself and in interacting with others is that as humans, I think we have a tendency to feel like we're victims, when in many cases we're not. When we're stressed out, we feel like this is happening to me, that's happening to me, my friend or employee is not treating me right. That's when you have to be honest with yourself and with the person or community member you're dealing with. And the other thing is that rather than using the victim voice, it's important to find that. And for me, I talk to myself and I say, okay, it's time to find that big girl voice, not the victim voice, and take a deep breath and realize that you need to do something, anything, and move forward, because then you feel a little bit more control. Even if it doesn't fix the problem, at least you're moving in some direction. And that it's the when we get frozen, it's that complete fear that keeps us from doing anything, that just makes the problem worse and certainly makes us feel like a victim. David Letterman's quote was, "I never learned a thing while I was talking." And it's so true. If we talk and we talk over each other, we don't learn anything. And for Eleanor Roosevelt, I would say her quote, "Do one thing every day that scares you." And it doesn't have to be a real fear, but it could be taking a different route home when you drive home from work, or biking to work for something different. Just something that takes you out of your normal routine. And to me, if you're in a situation that makes you a little nervous, that's good, because you're being forced to push yourself. So do something, dare to be remarkable. That's another one of her quotes too. And you could take the easy route, or you could put yourself out there, take a risk, and that's a big thing everyone talks about these days. It's when you fall down, it's how do you get up? How do you deal with, if you take a risk and it doesn't go well, and your business fails, it's a bummer, but it's how you react to that. Get up and get stronger as a result, and fight for what you believe in. Not fight, I don't like that word fight, but work for what you believe in. Let's not fight.
That's interesting you were saying that. I was reading something last night about this little powerhouse woman who is super successful today, and she said when she was little and she made mistakes or failures or something didn't go right, her dad would actually congratulate her on that.
Yes.
And today she's super successful because I've heard failure by taking risks often leads to success later.
I think absolutely. took a risk when I opened. It would have been easy not to open the business. And I took a risk when I did that. But and then there's some even more serious risks. But it's how you learn about yourself, and it's what a lot of people coming out of university are being told today: is take risks and see if you can see. It's the person that keeps getting up again and keeps pushing on, and who's had it tough, that really have built character.
Thank you for taking a risk.
And yeah, and it gives you more compassion, I think, for other people who are taking risks too. And in that sense, we do have to have community and support each other.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing fine. Just looking around.
No worries. That's what we're here for.